Hello, 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 and welcome to Feminist Card Revoked, where I talk about all of the assorted things that either get me dinged by feminists for not being a good feminist or have gotten me told that I'm just not a feminist. One day there will be like a cool title card that says like Feminist Revoked. Today's not that day. Now, if you read the description down below, or you're coming here from Patreon early, you know that this episode, our very first one, is about Emma Watson. And I know you're all like, but Emma Watson's great, and she's like such a feminist, and like she spoke out about like trans rights when like She Who Shall Remain Nameless went off the deep end. She's still a really shitty feminist, and I fucking can't stand her. And we're gonna talk about why. Now this actually starts pretty young. She's what I like to call a I'm not like other girls feminist / a pick me. If you don't know what a pick me is, I think my next video might actually be like defining what a pick me is. It's a type of woman who in general will throw other women under the bus for not wanting to deal with sexism, but Emma does it in a very like roundabout and educated way. Anyway, so this actually starts when I think it was book 4 or 5 was being turned into a movie. And the thing is, they knew obviously that filming this franchise was going to take about a decade, but you can't really lock anyone, especially kids, into a decade-long contract. You can, I think now, like have contracts for a certain number of films. So like, you know, Robert Downey Jr. had this many. I think Chris Evans also had like maybe the longest number of films like in his contract, but at this point in the 2000s, early 2000s, you had to like re-up your contract. And so when it came time for that to happen, everyone else was on board, but Emma was like, I want to go to school, like I really want to do this school thing. She's kind of been the same sort of person from that very first interview where they were all like, what are you gonna do with the money? And she was like, I'm gonna save it for school. And Rupert was like, probably gonna spend it. Love Rupert. But she was like, I want to go to school. Now, the movies were behind the actual chronological ages of the Golden Trio because I'm the same age as Emma, and I know that the movies finished when I was 20 and the characters are actually 17 still. So I don't know if she was doing her British A-levels or if this was when she wanted to go to Brown. But anyway, she was like, I'm going to walk because I really want to go to school. Warner Brothers, this billion-dollar company, was like, no. We need to have the same cast all the way through. We will move the entire filming schedule around so that you can go to college. Now, I know you're all probably thinking, no, that's actually great that, like, this teenage girl got to go to college and, like, you know, she changed it, made it easier for other people to go to school. Again, a 14-year-old white girl said, nah, I'ma walk because I want to do this thing. They did the thing. Let's just keep that little bit in mind. I would also like to point out she is not the only member of the cast to get a degree. Matt Lewis, who plays Neville Longbottom, also got a degree. There's a couple of other, like, not quite main characters who also got degrees after filming was done. Some of them also did it during filming just because they could make things shuffle. Like, she really asserted some, like, but I'm important that I, like, wasn't entirely comfortable with, just so she could get a degree. And then there's a couple of interesting statements that she made in interviews. Now, I try not to hold too much against, like, kids under, like, 25 because I understand there is no frontal lobe. But she was asked in an interview, and she said, I actually really rather spend time with, like, mixed groups of boys and girls. Because, you know, Rupert and Daniel, like to make fun of me for being really girly, but they're really just, like, putting it on. Already, she's differentiating herself from being girly and liking to hang out with other girls. That is a red flag of I'm not like other girls. And it's not just that she said that when she was like 13. It actually happened towards the end of the franchise too. Someone else asked about like who she spends time with and who she hangs out with. And it was like, yeah, I'm not, particularly girly. I don't really have a close group of female friends. And it was just like, you're a whole entire almost adult and you don't have a close group of female friends. But again, no fully formed frontal lobe. I'm gonna let her have that. But here's the thing. She just spent a decade, better part of a decade, if you will, going for months at a time, for years on end, with a very small group of people. It's its own little microcosm of Harry Potterness. So it's not the most diverse thought space. I mean, as we all know, Harry Potter is a very white, very straight, very cis, very heterosexual franchise. Like, the books are, the movies are. I will eventually make a video about, like, all of the Harry Potter issues. But, like, that's not a particularly great place to, like, have a variety of thought to mold your mind. But to pick up on the I want to go to school, she goes to Brown University, which, if you're not American and you're not familiar with the school system, it's a really, really good school. It's also, like, not a particularly diverse school. And I say diversity of thought. There are lots of different kinds of people, but it's America, so, like, they're there in I hate this word, but they're there in the minority. So even if you're taking a women's studies class, it's still 100% white women's studies, taught by a white woman who might have studied people of color, but, like, doesn't have any lived experience. And I don't even think there is a professor of color in the women's studies department. And we don't actually even know, I think, if she's even taken a women's studies class. So she goes straight from one microcosm with a lack of diversity to another microcosm of a lack of diversity. And this microcosm gives her this pedigree that she has a great education and she's well-informed and well-rounded, despite the fact she is not. And that rolls right into perks of being a wallflower. So she was still filming Harry Potter by the time she graduated from Brown. And I know this because at her graduation in Brown, she still has long hair, and the first thing that she did as soon as she was on HP was chop it all off, which is why she has, like, the fabulous and famous look from Perks of Being a Wallflower. And I always kind of wonder, like, what conversations did her and Ezra Miller have? Because, like, Ezra Miller is real enlightened, problematic and messy, but, like, just some of the opinions that she espouses now, I kind of go, was he mocking her and or cussing her out in his head? Because that's what I would have been doing. Anyway, Perks was actually great. It's the best YA book to film adaptation I have ever seen. I mean, it's better than Divergent. It's better than any of the John Green ones. It's just great. And so I was like, okay, great. Like, you know what? Maybe all of the, like, things she said before was just her being a teenager and not knowing better. And, like, maybe she really did learn something at Brown, or maybe just being on the set of Perks, like, broadened her horizons. And then The Bling Ring happened. So here's my thing. If you don't know what The Bling Ring is, it's a film that's based on a true story. So back in the early 2000s, here in Los Angeles, which is why I have some personal issues with this situation, in Los Angeles, a group of middle and upper middle class kids started robbing celebrity homes. So they used social media to find out when celebrities were and were not home, and they figured out that these celebrities were not setting alarms, didn't have alarms, they learned how to outsmart alarms, and they were robbing these kids blind. And this is back, like, circa The Sweet Life, and when, Justin Timberlake still thought he was black, so, this is when, like, Juicy Couture was, like, a $200 jumpsuit kind of thing, and they were stealing it to wear. They sold stuff, gave stuff to friends, and they did it for the thrill, a lot of them. They all got caught eventually. I think they were almost all convicted, but most of them got, like, probation, time served. One of them might have gone to jail, but it was for, like, a very minuscule amount of time. Whatever. This was Emma Watson's first sort of grown-up role because it wasn't, there was no sex, but it was sexy. The clothes that they wore, the way they behaved, she wasn't Hermione Granger anymore. But even when she talked about that, she made that annoying statement that some people make, I don't want to be like other people like Lindsay Lohan or whatever that just go extremely sexual. Keeping in mind that Lindsay Lohan, Amanda Bynes, and I think, who was the other one that got mentioned? All of whom have mental health issues. So it was like, first of all, don't I'm not like other girls. Second of all, do not I'm not like other girls, people with mental health issues. So I was already like, all right, girl, I don't like you. But then the actual movie came out, and there was an accent problem. So if you listen to the Buffering cast, so the Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast, you know that I have accent issues, specifically around Faith being coded as Black based on her accent. And if you follow me on Twitter, I talk about accents and how people are coded. I also discuss my accent, and my accent comes into play in this conversation. I'm from Los Angeles, and I talk like a Valley girl. People used to say I talk like a white girl. It's really not a white girl thing. America Ferrara, who's very much Latina, talks about going into her first audition and being asked to talk more Latino, because she talks like she's from LA. She talks like a Valley girl. And it's a very specific accent. It's a notorious accent. It's a famous accent. And in this film, Emma Watson does not actually use a Valley girl accent. What she uses is the dumb girl accent. It's what the media has led people to believe is actually the Valley girl accent. It's what girls in middle America hear and then go, oh, this is how Valley girls talk. The way in which you can differentiate this is listen to how Kim Kardashian, born and raised in Los Angeles, sounds. Go listen to how Paris Hilton sounds, a little bit Nicole Richie in The Sweet Life. Listen to pretty much any show about Los Angeles that isn't actually in Los Angeles and listen to the accent. It's that very slow, like having a question at the end, and you don't actually say anything of substance, but like, that's the Valley Girl accent. That is the put on Valley Girl accent. And it's used to denote stupidity. That you're vapid, that you're dumb, that California is full of people who aren't smart. I know this because if you listen to my accent, if you go back and you watch The Hills, set in Orange County, Los Angeles, if you go back and watch any other show set in Los Angeles, hell, if you watch Euphoria, you'll hear what it actually sounds like. Not the media designed. Not the one that we use to imply stupidity and vapidity and just girls who are not good. Guess what Emma Watson uses? And in this movie about a group of girls and one guy who figured out celebrity schedules, figured out security alarms, figured out how to get in and out without being seen or caught, and did so for a good long time, the implication of stupidity is both extremely insulting and incorrect. Now, she's British, which means she had an accent coach of some sort, meaning that accent could have been sorted. So it's a very specific choice to play the accent that makes these girls, who are potentially overly interested in fashion and being cool and being seen and being it girls, as dumb. And you can't tell me that nobody knows that in Hollywood. People know. You can watch movies and you can tell when that accent is used versus when a just regular Valley Girl accent is used. So again, in her first grown-up role, where she's already thrown girls who do sexy roles under the bus, she then specifically takes on an accent designed to make girls look stupid and bad and dumb, when in fact the girls she's portraying and her friends are really fucking smart, made bad choices, used their powers for bad, but weren't in fact stupid. So I'm already like, all right, you're a grown-ass woman and you're on movie number 2 and you're in your 20s. There is no reason for this behavior now. Like, I will even believe director's choice to a certain extent, but like, we'll find out, shortly, that she's really good at opening her mouth when she wants something and she thinks something should be changed. She did it with Warner Brothers, and we're going to listen to the next couple of times that she does it. So, like, she could have said something She didn't. She could have had a different accent. She chose not to. And therefore threw girls under the bus. I solidly did not like her at this point. And then the UN Women's Council debacle. So basically she makes this horrible speech as an ambassador for the UN Women's Council. And she does what many a white feminist does. She listed a bunch of things that every single Black, Indigenous, feminist, women from the global South, like every single like non-white feminist and like community worker has been saying for all of ever, and said it like it was this brilliant idea that it occurred to her and these are things everybody should do. And the internet drug her, as they should. But because of who she was and because she still somehow was clinging to this image of like this great girl, people like educated her in a way that I would like to point out Cardi B is not afforded when she occasionally messes up and says the wrong thing. That Megan Thee Stallion just isn't awarded like the same courtesy in general existing. So I think we really need to have that conversation too about like why she didn't just get her career ruined for a while. But she made this very grown-up choice. And so I thought that like she had learned something. She said, you know what, I'm going to take a year off. Like, y'all were right. I apparently don't know anything. So I'm going to take a year off, and all I'm going to do, I'm not going to do any movies, I'm not going to film anything. I'm just going to learn. And I was like, okay, maybe she gets that her brown education and her ego are not the greatest things. And she did. And like, I subsequently didn't keep up with her after that because I was like, great, she probably learned some shit. Not really my problem anymore. And then Beauty and the Beast happened. So like, there are many problems with Beauty and the Beast. You can find plenty of videos on the internet that will explain to you why that movie is so terrible. But the funny thing was, the first things that came out before we knew what anyone looked like, I think even before the Beast was cast potentially, the first thing that Emma Watson made sure everyone knew was, my one thing was I told Disney I wasn't going to wear a corset. Bitch, there are several problems here. Now, there's a great girl on TikTok, and I'm going to link her like 30-second video because it's the funniest shit you'll ever hear, that discusses like why this is just such a clueless thing that Emma Watson decides to cling to. But I'm just going to break down all the reasons why this corset comment is obnoxious. First things first, it's France. It's France during a time period, so like the Black Death, when she would have been wearing stays. She wouldn't have been even wearing a fucking corset. Stays. So like, she didn't even do the bare bones research. She just like picked a thing and decided, I'm gonna make myself look like a great feminist. Like, bitch, Google. Like, if you go to the Wikipedia article, it tells you when Beauty and the Beast takes place. Then all you gotta do is go, what's the fashion of that time period? Oh, you wouldn't have been wearing a corset. But like, it was much easier to be like, aren't I special? And the reason I say this, the aren't I special, is the sheer like privilege of that. So the last Disney princess I can think of, a live action, who had a corset was the also terrible Cinderella. And I believe the girl who played Cinderella, she's one of the ones that has the face where they all kind of look the same. And no, it's not an insult. Like, there's like 4 of them and they're all British and they all kind of look the same and they like get mixed up. So like Gemma Arteron, and there's a couple of them where like they're kind of interchangeable. Anyway, and I remember the horrifying thing that happened was everybody thought it was photoshopped, but her waist had been sucked in so small from the corset that even people who are tight lacers, like women who like expressly like shrink their waists using corsets, and like corseteers were like, holy shit, if like that's not something she'd been building up to, that's really fucking dangerous. And I remember her being like, yeah, my organs were rearranged. I was like, what? But she didn't have the kind of star power to put her foot down and go, I'm not fucking wearing this. I can think of many, many, many actresses who've complained about, having to wear corsets that have, again, rearranged organs and they can't breathe and like weird chafing and it's being terrible. But they're all women, if you look at it, that are young, that like have never had their name as top bill, or even in the movies where they're suffering aren't top billing. Hell, I even remember the very first Princess Diaries where like her party dress, they actually had to use leaning boards because their dresses were so tight and so like fluffy they couldn't even sit down. But that was like Anne Hathaway's first movie, so it wasn't really like she could be, no, this is horrifyingly uncomfortable and I cannot sit down. No. Same thing with Amanda Bynes in All American Girl or American Girl. She also, it was like one of her first or second movies, she couldn't really put her foot down and go, no. But Emma Watson has been putting her foot down since she was a teenager, going, I'm not doing this. What she should have done in that moment was, A, fucking Google and know that she wouldn't have had to wear a corset, but if she was going to be misinformed and discuss corsets, be like, and nobody should have to have this conversation. No young woman or woman should have to wear a suffocatingly small corset and rearrange their organs and have back problems and pain. This should be an industry standard where we don't have to wear corsets or we wear less tight corsets. But she didn't. She did not use that moment and her privilege to speak for other people. Per usual, it was, aren't I special? I said no to this. Like, fuck you. Fuck you, Emma Watson. Like, I can't. And then, again, I'm going to go back to the accuracy point in this because, again, she wouldn't have had to wear a corset, but even if she did, her argument for not wearing a corset is also like, do you really want to fuck with like period accuracy when really a nice, smart compromise would have just been, we're not going to lace this sucker till I can't breathe? Because let's face it, she's a thin woman. So any form of sucking it in, it's going to be fine. Like, it's not going to hurt. Like, puts on a corset, it's like a little uncomfortable because things are being sucked in, but it's not, if she doesn't tight lace it, it's no big deal, really. Like, that sounds awful, but like, I wear corsets all the time to give my shoulders a break because my girls are big. It doesn't suck. Like, she was honestly kind of making a mountain out of a molehill so that she could be super special, and like chose to fuck with period accuracy if she had needed to wear a corset. So there was like several levels of just like, girl, stop trying so hard to be special and let everybody know that like you are such a feminist, that you are not like all the other non-feminists. So that was like a major pissing point for me. But I also really just kind of thought like, girl, you're missing the point here. Like, maybe just think about why you're in a movie about a girl who's kidnapped and has Stockholm syndrome and develops love for like an actual animal who was cursed as an 11-year-old to be an animal, which, girl, you were asking the wrong questions. Like, the call was coming from inside the house on that one. And then here's my last point, and this one is like, this is probably the one that like made me just feel like she's irredeemable. So the other ones you can kind of ignore if you want, or you can kind of be like, I can kind of see it, I can kind of not. But it was that fucking self-partnered interview. So she does an interview, and I don't even think, I'm not even sure if the original question was about her dating, and maybe it was about, was she seeing anybody? And she goes, at 30, again, she and I are the same age, there's all this pressure to have kids and be in a relationship with somebody, and like, I'm really happy with what I do, blah, blah, blah. I'm self-partnered. And again, the internet rightfully drug her because Ava DuVernay, the director, Tracy Ellis Ross, the actress, director, entrepreneur, Mindy Kaling, the comedian, actress, writer, producer, Margaret Cho, the comedian, have all been single for fucking ever and have been like, we are single. and happy, and like we don't need men, and like we are the fun aunts, and just and Tracy Ellis Ross, I'm pretty sure is old enough to be my mother, which means she's old enough to be Emma Watson's mother. Like, so for Emma Watson to again take this conversation that women of color have been having in media all the time about the pressure to be with someone, to have kids, and be like, I have this special word for what I am. Bitch, you're single. That's it. You are not special. And I think that's part of it. It's not just that she's like, I'm not like other girls. It's, I'm not like other girls and I'm special. You're not. And like, I think that's what bothers me. And it's, she doesn't want to be like other girls, but she wants to be this feminist who gets praised for things. And she wants to do the right thing, but she keeps doing the right thing in the wrong, most harmful, most clueless and clumsy way, and gets praised for it. And like, we are ignoring the fact that she's not actually using that privilege. She's saying all of the right words, right? I want to go to school. But like, she doesn't talk to them about like, hey, can we make it so that like when we're making these films, or when you're working on other films, that like we make it so that kids have a chance to go to school, that we try to work around that. She could have had that conversation. She didn't. She could have like been that champion after she did, to go like, hey, no kid, even if they're on a franchise, because subsequently every movie became a franchise, whether we wanted it to or not, you know, should have that option. She didn't use her privilege for that. She used her privilege to get her way. With the bling ring, again, she chose to use the stupid girl accent. She didn't push back against why that specific accent was chosen. She didn't talk about like why these girls maybe were that way. She didn't. She just sort of pointed out that like these girls weren't exactly great. And it's really fun to play these girls that are so different from me. And it's like, girl, they're really not that different. Like, you're desperate to be a feminist and for people to like you. They were desperate to be famous and for people to like them. You know, when it comes to the UN Council thing, again, she thought she was using her privilege to make herself special. Like, she was like, great, I'm going to go in here and talk about how special I am. And it's like, she didn't actually use her privilege to like uplift anyone. She didn't do a cursory Google search about anything she was saying when she could have and uplifted other people's voices. She decided to go the, great, I said this and I'm doing the best thing ever, and then got dragged and like took the right step. I will constantly say she took the right step following that, but she like didn't fucking learn anything after that year, because then we roll straight into Beauty and the Beast, where she did not use her privilege or did a cursory Google search. Like, those are two things I want her to do: a cursory Google search and then like using her privilege, because again, the conversation should have been, and no woman should have to wear a corset. It shouldn't matter whether this is the first movie you're in or if it's the last movie you'll ever be in. No woman should have to wear a suffocatingly tight corset. But she didn't. So she was both wrong, incorrect, and didn't use her privilege. And then the self-partnered thing. Like, how disconnected are you from the discourse in your own industry? Like, it's not even like I need you to be super up on popular culture, because I don't. What I need from you is to at least know what other people in your industry are talking about, other women, other feminists, because Anna DeRenee, Margaret Cho, Tracy Ellis Ross, Mindy Kaling are all feminists doing similar work as her. And like, just, she apparently had no idea that they were also single, and were also proudly single, and were also having a conversation about all the joy that comes with that and all of the pressure. Also, I would like to say, as a 30-something, she needs better fucking friends, because like, I wasn't getting any pressure, because I have better friends than that. Like, no one was like, oh my god, when are you getting married? Oh my god, when are you having kids? Because like, we're fucking adults. Like, my god, girl, maybe you need some female friends. I don't know, seeing as you don't necessarily have a lot of those. Yeah, so this is the many reasons why I fucking cannot stand her. I would also, so these last two things are petty. They're very, very petty. And as if you know anything about me, I'm extremely petty. So my favorite thing is she did that whole self-partner thing like 2 years ago. Year ago, because she was 30, 31. She now has a boyfriend. And he was a secret boyfriend for a very long time. And then during quarantine, it came out that she was dating him. His name was like Rob something. And again, I live in Los Angeles. And he's reported to be an entrepreneur, a handsome, charming entrepreneur. First of all, he's LA ugly, but like Newark attractive. That sounds mean and shallow. It's kind of true though. Like, he's the guy in LA where like you see him and you go, okay, yeah, but he's not like your Zac Efron. And a lot of our baristas look like Zac Efron. But if you drop this guy in the middle of like Newark, it'd be like, oh my god, this model. Which isn't anything against him, except they really play that up in the article. So they play up that he's this hot, charming LA entrepreneur, and it's always phrased that way. Charming, hot Los Angeles entrepreneur. And here's the thing you should know. A little bit of media literacy. If the story and if the wording is exactly the same across many forms of media, that means someone's PR person put that information out. Now, that doesn't mean the star themselves knows that that's been put out in the media, but their publicist, their PR person, has 100% put that information out if it's the same order of words, the same language used in every single article. That also means they're hiding something. And lucky you, I live in LA. So her current boyfriend that has made her unself-partnered, is not an entrepreneur. He worked at a bike shop and he did a realty for about 7 or 8 months. I am not shading dating a regular person, because with the exception of all people, Rupert Grint, who's dating an actress, whose baby mama is an actress and has been in like a decade-long relationship with this girl, pretty much all of the cast is married or dating regular people. The Phelps twins are married to regular people. The guy who plays Seamus Finnegan, married to a regular person. Matthew Lewis met his freaking wife either like at a Wizarding World event or some other like Harry Potter related thing where she worked, which like that's the dream. So like, I'm not shading dating a regular person. Hell, Matthew McConaughey and Matt Damon married regular ass people. Like Amal Clooney, brilliant lawyer, married boring ass actor. Like, but when a guy is just slightly above a loser, no shame in working at a bike shop or doing realty, but I have questions about 30-somethings in Los Angeles who don't own their millennial basicness. I got issues. Like, they're playing up things that aren't necessarily the most accurate, because she's gone from self-partnered to good-looking loser. But the story being put out is handsome, charming LA entrepreneur. He's every guy you've ever dated for like 2 months and discovered that he's got mommy issues and dumped. Own it. It's one of those things that she refuses to own. She doesn't own her privilege. She doesn't own her I'm not like other girlsness, and she's not owning the fact that she's just dating a fucking loser. Like, I would just like her to own that. Like, just admit you're like the rest of us and you're having a good time knowing it's not a long time. And my last petty point with her is her and Tom Felton. So like, I ship her and Tom Felton as much as I like hate her, if only because, I mean, okay, first of all, they are just like stupidly perfect, and like every video of them together, I'm just like, I've never wanted to yell just fucking kiss at 2 people more than those 2. But the only time she's tolerable is when she's with him. It's the only time where there is absolutely no like feminist facade. No, I'm not like other girls. Like, she is the most human and open with him. What girl? I feel like that's fucking maybe even anti-feminist. The fact that the only time you're kind of human is with a man. Petty, I know. Having issues with her shitty boyfriend and the way that they're painting him in the media, and having issues with the fact that she's only tolerable with Tom Felton is really fucking petty, and I know that, but I can't fucking stand her. And like those two specific things are just like currently just making me want to. I want her to do better. She could be so good. She has so much star power and so much potential, and we've seen her acting, and she's just so fucking shitty. Anyway, before I ramble anymore, yeah, that is episode 1 of Feminist Card Revoked. I can't fucking stand Emma Watson. Comment down below whether you think I'm right, whether you think I'm wrong, whether you've never thought about it this way before, and I will see you next episode.